Hi, my name is Bob Johnson. I'm retired from the Highways Ministry after 35 years of service, and I've been sitting around looking at some of the old photographs of some of the employees that we had and some of the fellow workers, and I thought it might be an idea to put those on a videotape, and then we'll put it onto a DVD and make them available for other people who might enjoy looking at some of the pictures. Now, some of the names, I will know some of the names of some of the employees, but on some of them I may not. So on those ones, I will leave them up to you as you view the DVD to, in your mind, pick out the names of the fellow workers, because some of them may have worked with you as well as myself. So just bear with me and I'll run these photographs past you. Photograph taken of a shop foreman's conference in Region 4. On the left here is Henry Meerman, West Hollingshead, Lawrence Harding, Cliff Dodge, Stan Davies, Norm Harrop, Ted Robinson, Bill Sweeney. Going back to the second row, this is Johnny Smith, Jeff Warrington, Stan Davies, Ted Robinson, Ollie Saunders. Going down to the final row at the bottom, we have Regional Stockman Lenny Klassen, Terrible Tom Mearsley, Jack Smythe, who used to be our headquarters equipment superintendent, and then Tom Johnson, who took over as a services engineer in the early 70s, Bob Johnson, and Jimmy Peaver, Ollie Saunders from Smithers standing in the background. This is a shop foreman's conference in Region 3. Standing at the back here is Bob Lyons, Regional Driver Trainer, Eddie Sangala, Mr. Wilton, the headquarters office. We have Gordon Hunter, Bill Cordegaard, Tom Johnson, Art Sholton, Chairman of the Purchasing Commission. Second row, we have the late Joe Reed from Cranbrook, Harvey Thermoset, Steve Dixie, Regional Office Manager, George Lobe, Bill Kimball, Bob Johnson, Lenny Klassen, Regional Stockman. Looking at the final front row, we have Glenn Aids, Ernie Dean, Alec Latosky, late Russ Broughton Sr., the late Earl Klein, and Russ Broughton Jr., Lenny Klassen, Regional Stockman. This is a shot of the same group the following year in 1970. And a picture here of Bill Jeffs, Hope George, Fraser McLean, Jack Smythe, Tom Yearsley, and Trevor Evans. Standing in the background there is Jeffrey Warrington, Norm Harrop, Jack Doddridge. This is a shot of people who received the Long-Term Service Award. Gordon Harvey from the Bridge Resurfacing Crew. This is Dave from our Regional Surveys and Design in Nelson, BC. And there's a number of people here that I don't know, but we're going to go across them anyway because maybe some of you folks watching this will recognize the names, recognize the faces. This is Gib, who worked in the ferry system in the Kootenays for a long time. We'll go down to the bottom row. Bob Johnson here. Trevor Evans. Earl Lund. This picture was taken a year before privatization. This is Olaf Fleibold, engineer from the Victoria office. Earl Lund, Larry Thornton, Mel Kitson, Larry Churchill, Steve Cutt, Glenn Higgins. Looking at the bottom row, Fred Wyatt, Trevor Evans, Bob Johnson, Roger Remke, Jeff Warrington. This is a shot of Trevor Evans, the mechanical superintendent from Region 2. This was taken in 1986 at the Expo equipment display. The look on Trevor's face is, if you think my eyes are red from your side, you should see him from this side. This is a shot of Dave Lysick, services superintendent from Burnaby, and his wife. This was taken at Dave's retirement, and they're looking down at the cake. And I can imagine Dave saying, I'll take that half, and you take this half. This is a shot of a shop farmers meeting in Region 1. We have Mr. Oliver, Steve Cutt, Walt Mercer, Tom Johnson, service engineer, Ray Chamberlain, Laurie Croft, Bill Kimball, Lauren Anderson, Gene Butterfield, got a mistake there. Bill Kimball, Gene Butterfield, George Boyce. Going back for the first row, we have Carl Seehuber, John Waring, Norm Taylor, I think I got an error here. Carl Seehuber, start again. Carl Seehuber, Norm Taylor, Fred Schoenwald, Terrible Tom Yearsley, John Waring, George Owen, and Mr. Finlayson. This is a photograph of Lenny Klassen, the regional stockman at Burnaby, at his retirement party. Shot of Warren Nelson and his wife, RCMP Corporal, and Bob Lyons, regional driver trainer. Shot of Lenny Klassen at his retirement party, his wife Sharon, and their family, their daughter on this side, daughter on this side, a brother, and another brother at the back, and other family members. This is a shot of Jimmy Parker from Dawson Creek on his retirement party, at his retirement party. Jimmy was surprised by all the people who attended. Jimmy was a wonderful foreman and people really enjoyed him. This is a shot of a mechanic foreman's meeting in Prince George. I'll point out the people I can recognize for you. Seymour Young, district manager, Ross Robertson, Al Henke, Vic Martin, Lawrence Harding, Bob Johnson, Earl Lund, Paul Witzer, Jeff Warrington, Roger Remke, David G., Ron Donkersley. Keith Lisk, Clay Hazard, George Rabbis, Jimmy Parker. And this is the shop foreman from who was at Williams Lake for a long, long time. Name escapes me for a moment. I don't recognize this gentleman here. Looking at the bottom, we had the road foreman Jimmy Bell, who started in Poughkeepsie and became senior foreman in Prince George. And this is a lady that worked in the office in Prince George, keeping track of all the reports. Mike Kennedy, regional stockman. Gordon Hunter, headquarters mechanical superintendent. This is a regional managers meeting taken in Nelson, BC. We have Tony Bodnarchuk on the front, Bill Ball, John Lay, the late George Austin, Homer Good, and the personnel officer, Earl Lloyd, Errol Hicks, regional tech, Dennis Oliver, Errol Hicks, Dennis Oliver, Frank Swatsky in the background. Then we have Barry Pierce, the late Merrill Sproul, regional engineer, George Kazikoff, Bob Johnson, the late John Mintak, Dave Johnson, regional electrician, Bob Lyons, regional driver trainer, Jack Kelsall, Roger McEwen, Larry Franson, Ron Mack, regional safety officer, Gordon Sutherland, and Harvey Popoff. Another shop foreman's meeting from Prince George. This is Cliff Dodge, whose name I didn't get right the last time. This gentleman I don't recognize. George Rabis, Lawrence Harding, Roger Remke, Jimmy Parker, Ron Donkersley, Ross Robertson. Going down to the second row, Johnny Smith, David G, Clay Hazard. I don't recognize this gentleman. Nor this one. This is Al Henke. Bottom row, Art Charlton, chairman of the Purchasing Commission. Gordon Hunter, headquarters superintendent. This is Jeff Warrington and his assistant from his office in Prince George. And Steve Cutt. This is a mechanic foreman's conference from Region 1. There's a number of people I don't know. I'll point out the ones I do know. This is Roy Gettins, Terrible Tom Yearsley, Glenn Higgins, Gordon Hunter, headquarters superintendent, Tom Johnson, services engineer. This person I'm unaware of the name. Up in the back we have Bill Kimball. Moving to the left we have other foremen throughout the region. This is Ray Dykusen, Laurie Croft. This would be Lauren Anderson. A couple of people here that I do not know. These are shop foremen from Region 1. Moving along the back, just some more faces I can't recognize. Here's Mr. Al Henke and Steve Cutt. This is a Region 4 shop foreman's conference again. Henry Meerman, late Henry Meerman, Ted Robinson, Tom Johnson, services engineer, Don Weiber. Moving down to the second row, Wes Hollingshead, Ross Robertson, Glenn Ades, Lawrence Harding, Stan Davies. This gentleman I don't recognize. Going down to the bottom row we have Ollie Saunders, Walt Haddo, Norm Harrop, Johnny Smith, Sing Tour, Ray Chamberlain, the late Ed Hogg, and Gordon Hunter, headquarters superintendent. Down the bottom row we have Jimmy Peever, Jimmy Parker, Bill Kimball, Jeff Warrington, Roy Braun, the assistant foreman from Prince George, Johnny Smith, and Walt Haddo. Managers meeting held in Nelson, BC. We have Dave Grant, the Headquarters Safety Officer, Marge Brown, Regional Office Manager, Earl Lund, Service Engineer, Gordon Sutherland, Regional Director, George Kazikoff, Richie Harold, Dennis Oliver, Seymour Young, Dave Johnson, Regional Electrician, Dave from the Design and Surveys, Barry Eastman, and Don Hutton, Homer Good, Tony Bodnerchuk, Larry Franson, Bob Johnson, Frank Swatsky, Bob Lines, Harmon Delier from Fernie, Al Kernahan, and Errol Hicks, Regional Tech. There's another managers meeting held in Nelson, BC. Seymour Young, Homer Good, Stu Price, Victoria, Jack Kelsall, Earl Lloyd, Personal Officer, Bob Johnson, George Kazikoff, Roger Pratt. In the back row we have Frank Stawatsky, and we have Joe Rubel here, Errol Hicks, Jerry Miller, Larry Franson, and Dennis Oliver. This is an old photograph of a headquarters meeting that we found in the archives here. I'll point out the people that I recognize here. This is Pat Carr, who was the regional maintenance engineer in Prince George, and he moved to Victoria. Going down here we have Tom Johnson standing here, services engineer. Roy Gettins below him. And we have Bill Ball below him. Jack Kelsall, the late George Kent. We have Earl Lloyd standing here, our personnel officer. John Lay, Bob Veach over here. And down in the bottom here we have Al Lemacher, the senior personnel officer out of Victoria. That's all the people I can recognize in this group here, so I'm just going to pan by so you can look at them and see if you recognize anybody else. This is an old photograph taken about 1966 of the Puskupi shop crew. We got Benny Anderson, who was the welder there. John Adama, who was a mechanic on staff. Ross Robertson, Burger Bratt, who's now passed away. Al Schumann, the late Herb Lexa, and the late Romeo Lascelles. Jeff Warrington standing here. And one of the mechanics on this side, I can't recall his name right now. And one of the apprentices sitting down on the floor here. This was a bit of a going away party when Bob Johnson left the crew there and went to Prince George as the mechanical superintendent. The photograph here of Harvey Thermoset, the shop foreman at Invermere, and one of the loader operators standing beside a John Deere loader in a pit near Invermere, BC. Hi again. Bob Lyons is going to sit down in a couple of moments and introduce the training operators that he had on his staff over a period of 30 years in the Kootenays. So we're pretty lucky. Bob's been retired a number of years now. He spent a number of years as a trainer on the job for us, and then he became a safety officer after privatization occurred. So just bear with us, and Bob's going to do that for you.
Hi, I'm Bob Lyons. I've been with the Ministry of Transportation and Highways for 39 years. I've come up this morning to talk to Bob Johnson and look at some pictures of some of the fellows that we worked with. I moved to Nelson in '73 and was a regional driver trainer and worked in training and safety until I retired in 1979. And now we'll take a look at some of the pictures of the training operators that we worked with. Thank you. Okay, I'll introduce you to the original group of training operators that I worked with when I came to Nelson. This fella here is Charlie Moorwood. He was from Revelstoke. And this is John Buckle, the original maintenance engineer who supported our program. This is Wally Welsh. He was a training operator from New Denver. And here we have Frank Wolfram. He was the training operator in Grand Forks. Jimmy Edwards was a training operator in Creston. Bill Chimchuk was in Fernie. Harry Ronmark, he ran the program prior to my coming, and Harry went to work with John here in the maintenance management program. This is Seaman Dewis from Rossland, Ray Irwin from Golden, Pete Robinson from Nelson, myself, Glenn Aids, who ran the program from Victoria, and Bob Johnson was the regional mechanical superintendent in Nelson at that time. A group picture of the training operators at a later date, of course, and this one's in color, so you can see some of us still have hair, and some of us still have colored hair. Bob Johnson is the regional mechanical superintendent. This is Johnny Williams, and Johnny was the training operator in Rossland. Gordon Reed was the training operator in Forks. Wally Welsh was one of the original training operators, and Wally's from New Denver. Myself, Bruno Markey, he was the training operator in Cranbrook. Jimmy Dewar was the training operator here in Nelson. Bill Swallow from Revelstoke, Ray Irwin from Golden, and Grant Bateman from Creston. Just want to make a correction on my retirement date. I was a little confused there. I retired in '97, and I retired as a safety officer. Thank you.
This is a shot of the truck number S5000, which was a Pacific truck equipped with a turbine engine, and it worked up on the Selma Queston for a spell, and also then went and worked at Revelstoke for a while. And Bob Lyons, previous presenter on this film, actually had the opportunity to operate and drive that thing out in the snowplow in Region 3. One more shot again of the S5000 series, equipped with a turbine engine, plowing on the Selma Queston. There's a shot of the S5000 after its usefulness had been derived from the unit. The engine was taken out and sent to Burnaby Technical, and the unit was scrapped in Revelstoke, sitting in the scrapyard. I'd like to for a moment draw your attention to a cutaway model of a front brake chamber and a cutaway of a brake drum, and this one was made up by Bob Lyons and Dave Curry, the welder out of Creston. And it was used to train people on the proper way to adjust brakes on trucks. There's one more shot of the cutaway model showing how the brake chamber was cut away so that you could actually expose the parts and show the students the proper way to adjust the brakes, and also to show if the brakes were not adjusted so the piston would bottom out in the chamber. This is a shot of the late Hope George, the mechanical superintendent from Region 3 and 4. And this was taken over on the Queen Charlotte's, where they had a corduroy road over the Muskeg Swamp area. Hope has since passed away. He's been dead for about 3 years now. Here's a shot of Ed Sangal, the shop foreman from Fernie. He's retired now, has been retired since 1978. A shot of Joe Reed, the shop, and Joe has passed away about 3 years ago. This was taken at Sparwood. It shows one of the dump boxes from the large coal trucks there. This is an old picture of one of the sander units that we used to use before tailgate sanders were on the market, and before hopper sanders. This is a differential off a truck with a bit of a hopper on top, and the differential turns the spinner and the agitator goes in here. So this used to be towed by a 4-ton, and the people in the back would shovel the sand down into this hopper, and as you moved it would distribute the sand out on the highway. This is a shot of an old pole grader mounted outside the yard at Puskupi, BC. It's a beautiful old pole grader, and these were used for a number of years before we had power graders. They were towed with tractors and crawler tractors. This shot taken in the area out by Greenwood of a train grader accident. See how the grader's been torn all apart here? I guess the grader operator didn't see the train coming. The photograph taken in the Nelson district. This is Bill Cordegaard and Rio Peloso and another one of the tradesmen working with him. They're updating one of the ferries in the areas. They actually put brand new cabins on the area to replace the old ones and widen the deck area so they could carry more passengers. This is a photograph of the late Alec Latosky on the right here. He passed away about 10 years ago, and one of the loader operators taken in the Golden area, standing in front of a John Deere loader on the job site. This is a photograph taken in the Creston area of the late Earl Klein, the shop foreman, sizing up a V-plow for use on a grader or a large truck. This is again a shot of the 5000 series truck here, delivered to the job site. It's on the Selma Creston, and we have Fraser McLean standing here. He was in on the delivery when it first came up, and this will be a couple of mechanics from the Creston shop, perhaps one operator and a mechanic. A photograph of the late Pete Methuen, who was the regional radio technician before Norm Yankee. This was taken at the weather station up on the Selma Creston. This is another old picture. I'll try and point out the people I can recognize here. This is Mac McVicker, Mr. Al Rhodes, Bob Harvey, Fraser McLean, Hope George, Al Park, Pat Carr, Roger McEwen, it'll be Carl Shaw, Pat O'Toole. This will be George Kent in the back here, Al Lemacher, and that's about all the people I recognize in that photograph. This is a historic photograph about how the roads used to be maintained in the early days. This is a shot of a pole-type grader here, horses towing the unit. Compared to how we do it today, there's been a heck of an improvement. This is a photograph that was taken in the Kootenay area. I'm not sure about the location nor the names of the people. We're back to the 5000 series truck again. Here he's got a V-plow on the front, and notice how he's actually broken through this snow drift here. Be what the truck looked like as it was coming through here. There's the truck cab there, and the snow is being pushed out each side by the V-plow taper action. This is a shot of a snowblower, Sickert snowblower operation working up on the Christina summit. Notice the depth of the snow here and how he's cut past, and removing the snow was pretty difficult without a blower in those days. Here's a shot of an old dump truck. This was one of the archives pictures here. This is a 2-ton truck working. The number is S422. Look at the size of the box comparative to today. This is a photograph of a similar unit actually dumping its load. Look at the size of the front tires. Old and small compared to today's trucks. A photograph of Art Irving, who was the superintendent, the mechanical superintendent, Region 3, has his car stopped into a snow cut where the blower has gone through and cleaned out the snow. And look how narrow the road is there and the depth of the slide. This is another photograph of the late Art Irving standing here. This is a photograph of Eddie Sangala, the retired shop foreman from Fernie, and his wife. Eddie's wife passed away about 3 years ago. Ed still lives in Fernie. He's 85 years old this year. He retired in 1978. He did a really nice job as the shop foreman in Fernie for the ministry. This is a photograph of the patching crew in Nelson. On the right hand side is the late Russ Broughton Sr. Richie Mignault, the training operator, one of the Williams brothers, and Lundy, who worked on the sign crew out on a patching operation. This truck was fabricated, put together by the Roslyn shop crew. Did a very nice job of patching potholes. The photograph on the left hand side, we have George Lobe, the shop foreman of Grand Forks. Art